Alrighty. Good morning, everybody. We're starting off with our latte. Doing a vanilla bean latte today. It is so good. A dark blend that is locally roasted here in Korea. Matter of fact, I'm running low on my stash, so we're going to be doing that. We got some problems here on the audio again. I'm so over this problem. It just seems we keep running into problems with streaming. And let's try that and see if that helps anything. I don't know. Recording audio. Try that. Testing, testing, testing. Reset that. Yeah. Oh man, this is terrible. I don't know what the deal is lately with all of this. I mean, I've ended up, I've changed the frame rate and stream size and all of that. My speed test results are good. But since the latest Mac update, this thing has been just horrible. Set some headphones, using mic delay. I'm doing all that. Interview, not doing that. Shortcuts, remove. I don't know what to do. Maybe if I reset the camera. Let's try that. Yeah, that's not it. Maybe this is it. How about that? Okay. That is weird. Okay, so anyway, I guess I need to reset the cameras from time to time. I don't know. Let me see. Maybe it's just too taxing when I have multiple cameras put in here. I don't know why. That is just odd. And then my phone. Let me see if I make that. No, that's not working either. Yeah, some odd things are going on. Anyway, okay, so that's what we got going on today. Besides technical difficulties, we have people are too sensitive and offended these days. I was sitting back and I was contemplating this because there was obviously discussions online on social media. What are the odds? And people giving their 2 cents. And in this one discussion, it really hit me because this one person posted something that was obviously not true. And there was multiple sources saying that no, this thing is indeed not true, what was said. And it had to do with a news source. I'm not going to say the news source, but it was about some military stuff. And I'm an independent, and so when a person posted a left-leaning radical news source, and then it was disproven by Stars and Stripes, DOD, Pentagon, USFK, even the Korean Defense Military had put out and said, hey, no, that's not true. And, well, I'll tell you what it is. It is the Wall Street Journal that ended up saying that, they're going to withdraw troops. 4,500 troops are going to be withdrawn from Korea. And that was the only news source. They didn't post any articles or proof of that. And it's been quite an interesting little thing. Hey, Soup. There he is. Hey, how you doing, bro? Good to see you on the feed. So anyway, during this course of this discussion, this one person had it just hard set in their mind that, you know what, it's absolutely true. There's no basis for anything of, no proof saying otherwise at the Wall Street Journal and the claim that they made about the 4,500 Korea troop withdrawal wasn't going to happen, despite all of the articles. And it's funny because you'll see things like this, and with one disagreement, you'll see people just lose their shit. You'll see people that will get up in arms about it, and they'll be like, "Hey, oh, and insults start flying, and it's like, oh, well, I'm gonna unblock you, or I'm gonna block you, I'm gonna unfriend you, and you don't know what you're talking about." And it's like, I started thinking about that because, a while back, I mean, I'm gonna be 59 here pretty soon. So I've got a few rotations around the world. And I was just amazed at the how offended people get these days, and how they get to a point of where it's like, if you don't agree with somebody 100%, then it gets to the point of where they're going to unfriend you, they're going to block you, and they start hurling insults and everything. And it's like, I really just don't understand because, like I said, I've got a few years under my belt. I joined the Army when I was 17 and came into the melting pot of the U.S. Army. Every type of skin color, ethnic background, race, creed, whatever. So many differing opinions, but we all banded together and we realized that no matter our differences, we still had each other's backs. And I had a lot of good friendships while in the military. But over the decades, what I've noticed is we've had this slow decline, and where if you disagree, suddenly we become so segmented that even if we disagree on one minor thing, we will unfriend and we won't talk, and we'll just resort to name calling and threatening people and their families and blah 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 blah, and hurling racial epithets, and apparently not related to the Wall Street Journal situation, but I've been called a racist. I've been called Nazi white supremacist because I don't do the vegan lifestyle. And the funny thing on that one was interesting. There was this discussion and talking about what are the pros and cons of a meat-based diet versus a vegan diet, and so on and so forth. And there's been a lot of, I tend to go on the more researched and verifiable proof arena. And so I refer to a lot of studies, published medical studies, with meta-analysis, the highest form of proof. And with that, and I actually was on the vegan diet for a while, and as trying to build muscle and see what were the differences. And you can build muscle on the vegan diet, but it's just there's not a lot of dense protein in the vegan diet, and it's missing some vitamins and minerals and things like that you have to supplement separately if you're on the vegan diet. And apparently, some people just lost their minds because I pointed that fact out. And it's not that I was saying that the vegan diet was bad. It was just saying, hey, here's something that you need to take into consideration if you do the vegan diet. And after my testing of it, I walked away from that because, one, it's too expensive. The protein sources are not dense enough, and I've talked at great length about that, about the differences between like 6 ounces of chicken or steak or salmon or whatever, and compared that against lima beans or whatever, and massive differences. You'd have to eat a buttload of vegetables, and your stomach would get severely bloated. But yeah, anyway, I digress. It was amazing on how people that I've known for a while, because of this one point, and I posted that information about, hey, these are the missing things out of the vegan diet that you need to supplement, which have been proven by science and disinterested parties or meta-analysis on it, that this one individual that I had known for over 10 years online was just like, just started hurling insults at me. And it was just like, it makes me wonder if we disagree on one point and then we're just going to throw away a relationship over one thing. then you need to divorce your wife, not talk to your kids or any of your other family members. Hell, you shouldn't even be working. You should be a hermit up on top of some mountain somewhere because, yeah, it's just not going to happen. You're never going to agree 100% with people. Uh, yeah, it's just, it's crazy on what we end up seeing. And my audio is still jacking up. Let me try this and see if that helps. Recording, blah, 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 destinations. So, yeah, I just don't get it on why this happens with this. So anyway, it ends up, it's absolutely crazy on what I ended up seeing with people and what they end up doing for, let me see if options, high quality, no, I don't want to do that. Video shape, video size, stream picture. But yeah, I mean, I was just amazed at how we've come to a place in society where we end up saying that, if we don't agree 100% and allow some flexibility in our friendships or in our family, and unfortunately, I've seen some problems. Yeah, audio. Yeah, sync is a bit off. Yeah, I know, and that's something that's been messed up. Excuse me. So true about people these days, overly sensitive, offended if comments are made that don't fit their views. Yeah, that's just something that just doesn't compute because I think there was a time back when it was kind of common knowledge or kind of innate knowledge that you knew that you wouldn't agree with everybody, whether it's spouse, family, friends, coworkers, the whole nine yards. We all knew at some point that there wouldn't be 100% consensus on what we believe, think, and do, and we were okay with that. I mean, it's like it's okay to have a differing opinion. It's okay if you have different tastes in music. It's okay if you haven't. This is going to be a touchy one. If you have a different political worldview or religious worldview, or if you don't even have a religion, it's just strange on how we create this us versus them type thing. And unfortunately, I think it's gotten worse and worse over time. And with the advent of social media, that has segregated us even more. And so there's pros and cons to everything. There's the pro to social media. Worldwide, we can have friendships, with people we could have never had friendships before across the world from different countries, different backgrounds, societies, yada, yada, yada. But with that, we've also isolated ourselves because we think that we're right 100%. And there is something to be said about objective truth, and there is absolute truth. For those of you who say, no, well, the only truth is the truth that you have, that is your truth, that you've come to the realization of. And with that, I would say, no, I would tend to disagree, but I'm not gonna, unfriend you for your belief in that. But I would say that rape is wrong. I'm just saying it's always wrong. So raping and killing babies, yeah, that's wrong. That's kind of a no-brainer thing. But yet still there's people out there that have differing views that will say, well, there's a difference. Maybe if a situation came up, well, we're not talking about situations that you can make up where elephants, how many elephants can dance on the head of a pin. We're talking about everyday life, normal life. And, it's funny how we have disassociated ourselves with humanity and isolated ourselves, and for the sake of identity, or we want to belong to a group, and that group has a different opinion, and if you don't belong to that group, you're automatically ostracized. And I've seen families break up over this. I've seen, churches disband because of this, because some people believe this and some people believe this, and then the church splits, and then both the churches close, and it's like it really didn't do any good for anybody. So, yeah, it's just very problematic, I think. And there comes a time where there's absolute truth, and then there comes of the stuff that you do, and whether that's based on absolute truth or not. There's a difference between the two. Now, if you want to do something that's not based in truth, that's fine, but don't think that you hold the moral high ground because of that, and or think yourself better than somebody like that, or you start relying on these things like appeal to authority and these logical fallacies, and that, well, if you're not qualified, if you don't have the right credentials or the right letters after your name because you went to some school, that doesn't hold any water either. There's people out there with PhDs are the dumbest people that I've ever met, and they forgot everything that they studied to get that PhD. And even then, it just means that you took a test. It took a test. It means you did some work. It's not an indicator that you are correct now in life. It's almost like that appeal to authority, or the appeal that, well, we've been doing this for so long, it must be right. Well, bloodletting was done for a long time. That doesn't mean it's right. Incest has been done for a long time, and rape has been done for a long time. That doesn't mean it's right. So, slavery was done, for every single race on the planet. Everybody's been a slave at one point or another. That doesn't mean it's right. So, yeah, it's just kind of strange on how you get people and how they get so offended at things these days. And it's just very, very odd, I think. Which leads to either isolating yourself or isolating others away from you. Still, what that ends up doing is damaging your relationship with people. And if you make it such a point of contention that if somebody doesn't agree with you 100%, then, yeah, like I said, you better divorce your spouse and not talk to your family members. You need to be a hermit and be somewhere out in some mountaintop or whatever. I think some Koreans believe in shamans. Yes, they do. Yes. Kind of a little off topic, but it ends up, I got a story about that. We'll come back to that. So hold on, Pat. We'll get back to that. Henry Parker. The internet stopped people to interact and try to empathize with some people they disagree with. It's a muscle memory people forget to use. Oh, what was the last part? Everybody is in their own echo chamber. That's absolutely true. Everybody is in their own little world. But you need to be able to realize that you don't need to have everybody agree with you 100% all of the time. And it's okay to have differing opinions and ideas. I've got family members that were wildly, wildly different in their beliefs. I've had family members that were sovereign citizens, and these were smart people who had degrees, in college and worked businesses and stuff like that, and they fell for that sovereign citizen thing. So it's like, okay, well, if you want to do that, that's fine. I don't see the legality of it. I actually see the opposite of it, of, not paying your taxes. Not that I like paying taxes, but, I would still maintain a relationship. But when it gets to the point of whatever that thing is in their echo chamber that if you don't accept that, then they ostracize you, then it's like you're missing out on so much. And it's especially hard with family members. When family members take a stance of where if you don't agree with them 100%, and then that puts it to the point of where they're not going to have relationships, with their family members or extended family members, grandkids, or whatever it is. Yeah, that is just so problematic, and it creates so much pain and trauma because kids don't understand that, and even some adults don't understand that. So yeah, very problematic. Well, let's talk about some other stuff. Pat brought up an interesting topic here. I think in Korea, some Koreans believe in shamans. That is actually true, and they have fortune tellers. The interesting thing is it's all based kind of based off of astrology, but it's like 1,000 times or 1,000,000 times better, because astrology is nothing determines your fate. Like, I'm a Libra, and because Sagittarius is in the realm of whatever star planetary, oscillation or whatever, that I'm going to have a bad year this year, or I'm going to find, I'm going to be successful. Yeah, it's just not a thing. But I will say, I actually went to, when we were down in Busan, and it ends up Busan. We were down there. We actually stopped, and I was like, "Hey, let's try one of these things." I had read up on it, and they do, like, they take your birthday, not just your birthday, but your birthday, the hour, the minutes, and the seconds that you were born. And if you're lucky enough, your birth certificate will have the hours and the minutes of when you were born. And what they'll do is they'll take that, and I was amazed because I was stoic as this old Korean lady, was going through this thick book and looking at my birth date and so on and so forth. And she proceeded to tell me stuff that I had done and the family dynamics that I had that were unknown to her. And it wasn't like, oh, you seem to have problems within your family. And it's like, it wasn't a fishing thing, because that's a dead ringer question, because everybody in every family has had problems. So it's, but this lady, she ended up going through, and it blew my mind. But I'm just sitting there, with this type of face. And I'm not, there's no tells or anything. But she explained the family dynamic within my family that was spot on. She talked about my history of work, not specifically my history of work, but there's things within work and how I operate and so on and so forth, and how I had problems in the past with businesses and so on and so forth, which was true, down to, during this year you had problems and blah, blah, blah. And going forward, you're looking to do this. There's 3 things that you're really interested in at the time, and you can make money at any of them, but it's going to be a few years. And in a couple of years, you're going to expand and blah, 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 and whatever. And the stuff, it floored me. And it floored my wife. And it was just something that was like, holy crow. We're not talking tarot cards here. We're not talking that. They had cards, but the information and the insight that she had was just incredible. And so, talking about, hey, well, do this. What you'll want to do is you'll want to wait a couple of years before you do, real estate and blah, 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 which is weird because we never mentioned anything that we were going to do. And it was like, yeah, we're planning on buying real estate, buying another apartment and so on and so forth. And it's like, yeah, you're not going to be able to do that for another couple of years. And lo and behold, what happens? And I just kept that in my mind. It's like, okay, that was pretty amazing stuff. But as we were going over our finances and looking at the status of where we're at, guess what? Yeah, we're not going to be able to buy the apartment we want until like another year. So the time frame that she gave was spot on. And so it was like, you're going to be really successful. You're going to have a long, healthy life. And you ask the question, well, does everybody have a long, healthy life? With fortune tellers, and it's like, oh no, no. There's, and that was a kind of an interesting little insight from this Korean fortune teller, is that no, there's people that don't have time, and it's not all roses and puppy dogs and rainbows when people get their fortunes read. So I thought that was very, very interesting. So yeah, it just kind of blew me out of the water on the information that they gave, the insight that they had into my life, just by knowing my name and my birth date and the day, the hour, and the minute on which I was born. It was wild. And of course, there was a little bit mixed in about the Chinese astrology, with the different animals. I'm a horse and whatever, and then talking about how you interact with people of different, this person's a dragon, this person's a dog, or whatever, it just ends up, it was pretty insightful. And the I actually want to go back and do it again, because I would like to get a recording, to record it and have it translated into English, and to play that back, and just to kind of go over it and do a video on that alone. That was just, it was mind blowing, to say the least, and it's hard to blow my mind, after everything I've seen. Let's see what ends up. Henry says, that's kind of scary. I'm not convinced, though, especially if you start believing this stuff. You keep going to a shaman and lose a lot of money. Many Koreans give away their life savings for advice. That's absolutely true. There's lots of cases of that. Matter of fact, wasn't it in 2016 that the female president, woman president, Park something, whatever, I can't remember her name, but she was president in Korea, and she had a spiritual advisor, shaman type of person. And yeah, there was a lot of, money was being appropriated from government funds and contracts and so on and so forth. It really put a bad taste for, having a female president when they got caught breaking the law and using the shaman to make their decisions. And so I got to agree with you there, Henry. I could see how that could be addicting. But it was just, this was like a one-off thing. And if I do it again, I'll want to record it and get the transcript and, have the translation of it. I think that'd be kind of interesting. But, and there's different, you pay a certain amount of money to get so much information, and to get the full-blown thing, I can't remember how much it was. But, as like a one or a two-time thing, it was very, very interesting, and I could see how people would get hooked on that, and because then it becomes to the point of where, it just you want to rely on somebody else to tell you what to do. That's what a lot of people want to end up doing. We are all sheep, and it's hard to be a shepherd. It's hard to be a leader. It's hard to be independent, But I think that's the human condition, is that we're meant to be together, and we're meant to, to have friendships, to have socialization to some point, and you can't remain a hermit. And even though your circle of friends can be really small, there's still that need of that in your life. Mark Design comes up, says, I'm buying whiskey for a gift. Is it cheaper at duty-free shop at Incheon? Yeah, I would kind of say so, because off-post you're going to be paying a premium for that, and it is cheaper because you're not going to pay that value-added tax or that import tax that is added to those items. So at the airports, that's why you see a lot of people, foreigners, Koreans, Chinese, wherever you're at, in the duty-free goods. It ends up that, you can get deals, and if it wasn't a good deal and you couldn't get it cheaper, they wouldn't be selling that stuff at the airports at the duty-free goods. So, yeah. Henry says, agreed. People yearn to be told what to do. Very insightful. And it's, even within marriage, there are people that are like, oh, the man's the head of the house. which is true. I subscribe to that view. I am the head of the house. But there's this old kind of Korean saying, proverb type thing, is that the man is the head of the house, but the woman is the neck that turns the head. Think about that. That there is that coexistence, and that, yeah, the man is the head of the home, but the wife is the neck that can turn the head. But the wife can turn the head. The husband can make the decision and say, well, I don't care what you say, this is what we're going to do. What you're going to find is that you're not going to travel through life together to get to your goals. What you'll end up doing is splitting apart because of that. And that causes frustration, it causes pain in your marriage, it causes pain in your life. But when you realize that you need to work together, and when the head and the neck are together towards common goals, that's when you become really close, and it ends up that your journey is so much easier. So there's that. Yeah, I picked up a few things. What about Apple MacBook Pro? Cheaper in Korea or US? I would say it depends on where you get it. If you get it on the economy, generally electronics are more expensive in Korea than in the United States. But generally, I mean, Apple's pretty good about keeping their products pretty much the same price. But I would say you could probably get better deals in the United States versus Korea, especially out on the economy. If you have access to a military base, I wonder. That makes me wonder. Interesting little tidbit. Let's see if this holds true. MacBook Pro. And what we'll end up doing is we'll take a look at shopping. And I'll kind of show you what I'm talking about here. So here we are, and we're taking a look at, this is Naver, by the way. So this is kind of like an Amazon type thing. But it ends up, we have, for sales, same day, departing, MacBook Pro 14 or 16 or whatever. And let's see, that ends up, it's $34.57. And we would need to find so let's go ahead and pop that up and see what we get. Space black. And let me see if we can end up getting this on, see what we come up on Amazon. M2 Pro, blah, 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 Pro 16 core, 2024, 14 core, M4, 2024. So 12 core, that one was 14 core. 14 core. Oh, okay, here it is. So, with the M4 chip, and in case you're wondering what I'm looking at here, so there it is, the 14 core, 20 GPU, which comes out to $2,600, which is interesting because it's actually gone down in price. It's gone down in price about $298, which is pretty good. That's not bad. Say $297. So with that, if we go over to the Korean site and here, and let's pull up a calculator. If I can do this. Of course, it's going to be all weird. Let's see, 3,457, 240, and we'll divide that by 1,425. Seriously. 3, 4, 5, 7, 2, 4, 0 divided by 14.25 the exchange rate. Yeah, I mean, it ends up it's about the same. But if you go to a store, of course, I'm looking on Amazon. But if you end up going to stores on the local economy, you'll pay a little bit more than you would in the United States, at least in my experience. Anyway, got to shop around. Best places, matter of fact, because the American dollar is doing so well, you can actually get some good deals. But I've heard that if you go to Japan, Japan's economy is getting really rough. And so a lot of people are traveling from Korea to Japan to buy electronic stuff. Let's see. Henry says, I don't want to steer the conversation to that, but even if consumer electronics like computers are exempt, there still seems to be tariffs or certain components that could cause fluctuations in pricing. Yeah, that's absolutely true. However, in regards to the tariff war that is going on, so many people are like, oh, this is going to make iPhones, cost $1 million or whatever. But actually, since the tariff wars has popped up, and I want to give you some examples, like this example here, with a lot of Apple stuff, here is that laptop, and you're now saving almost $300 off of this. And if we go to let's say another one, Creality, I do some 3D printing, and if we go to their store, what we'll find out is the price of this K2 Plus combo. So that's what I ended up getting. So let's go ahead and we'll take a look at that, and we'll buy this. And since the tariff war started, this has gone down in price. It used to be $16.49, now it's $14.99. So you're saving $150, and what I've noticed, at least in my experience, in my little world of things that I buy, electronics and cameras and stuff like that, a lot of this stuff that comes from China, even drones and so on and so forth, amidst the tariff wars, what I've seen is that these Chinese companies have actually dropped the prices because they make a lot of money on these things. But they're able to drop the prices and offer a discount even though they've been slapped with these tariffs. So, for example, that Creality K2 Plus has gone down $150. The Apple laptops have gone down. We're talking new equipment here. It's not talking about the K2 Plus is like an old 3D printer and has been replaced by a newer model, and that's why there's that price decrease. No, that's their flagship product, and they haven't released another printer yet. So it's interesting that we see these price drops, and so this whole doom and gloom thing about the tariff wars with this current administration, I think it's a little unfounded, because I'm not really seeing it. I'm seeing a lot of stuff like printers, like electronics, even filament and 3D printing stuff, resin and FDM printing stuff, painting supplies and all this stuff that comes from different countries. They're actually dropping their prices, so they're eating that tariff so they can continue to sell, because the whole thing comes down to the point of if they don't sell, they're not going to make any money. And that's not good for any business, no matter where you are in the world. But if you lower the price and you eat a little bit of that expense of the tariff, you're still going to sell, but you're going to make a little bit of the less profit, but you're still going to make some profit, which is good for business. So you can sustain by dropping those prices. So, it's just kind of an interesting thing. And as an independent, I don't really have a dog in the hunt as far as political. I'll just take the good ideas from whichever side, and as long as it's makes sense, I just kind of run with that. So the whole tariff thing hasn't been crazy for us, and the American dollar is going pretty far here in Korea with the exchange rate. Mark pops up and says, "I'll be in Korea next month. What are good items to buy in Korea than the U.S.?" I don't know. To be honest with you, souvenirs. I don't know. honestly, unless you buy some soju, but you could buy soju in the United States. There might be some specialty items, but nothing really just jumps out at me and says, I would buy this if I took a trip to Korea and went back to the United States. But then again, I've been in Korea for a long time, so it's kind of like, it's just not a big thing. So I don't know. That's an interesting question. Interesting question. Henry pops up again and says, it would be interesting to see how that breaks down. Could it be that companies are still emptying their old supply? Either way, we'll see how this turns out. Yeah, that's really all we can do is just kind of wait and see. Some of the interesting things is that with the trade deficit that China and the U.S., China has been taking advantage of the U.S. for decades. And regardless of the administrations that have been in, whether Republican or Democrat or whatever, but there's always been a huge trade imbalance. And, the tariffs are such a bad thing, then why are other countries have tariffs where we have to pay a ton of money to them, but not vice versa? So I think the tariff thing, in my opinion, and you don't have to agree with me, but I think it's a good thing because smaller countries are given the opportunity to actually have fair trade with the United States. As long as the tariffs are the same, then that's good for both countries. And if China had such a stranglehold on the United States for so long, and they thought, we're the main supplier of Chinese goods to the United States. We're the big supplier, and you need us more than we need you, or vice versa. But it's a symbiotic relationship. You can't have one without the other, but you can't abuse the other. Almost like a relationship. You can be in a relationship, but if one spouse is abusive to the other, you can still be in that relationship, but it's not beneficial to both of them. So I think the tariff thing and leveling out the tariffs is actually an equal trade, and having equal tariffs is a good thing, in my opinion. But I'm not going to unfriend anybody over that. So, but yeah, like Henry said, the only thing we can do is just, it's not like us discussing it is going to change world policy, or we just got to, sit back, drink our coffee, and see what happens. But so far, from what I've seen, personally, I've seen better deals since this stuff, and maybe it could be that they're emptying their old supply. But the fact that, it had the tariffs, and then I saw the price decrease, I don't know. That could be true. But then again, if you have to pay tariffs, it doesn't matter if you have it doesn't matter how much inventory you have, you're still going to be subject to those tariffs. So, those things have been put in place, so you're still going to have to pay those high tariffs. The fact that they're dropping the prices and still trying to sell and successfully sell by giving discounts shows that there's some wiggle room. So, Henry ends up saying, "Ba-bum, America opened their market to gain influence globally, convince the world that capitalism is superior. Now there is nothing wrong to readjust, but I wish there would be less name calling." Yes, less name calling would be good. And I think there's a difference between, I don't know, having a ghetto mentality or a poor mentality, where if you don't agree, suddenly name calling. But then there comes to the point of where you're more professional, business minded, corporate, whatever it is, or even just, the professionalism that you learned growing up through your family, or maybe it was through the military, that you realize that you don't have to call names. You don't have to insult people if they have a differing opinion or whatever. Could you imagine if, politicians of the day, or even of our history, just automatically resorted to name calling instead of being diplomatic about things? It could have worsened wars, and, loss of life would have been, just kind of expand that out. And, the consequences of doing those things and not being professional and not being diplomatic, there's something to be said for that. But the thing that kind of bothers me is that as soon as somebody boom, immediately drops to name calling. It's like, yeah, that tells me, and that's I used to be like that too, but it just shows how, I don't know, maybe not as educated, maybe not as much common sense, maybe as not having been open to more experiences out in the world, or if you have a real provincial view, or if you never traveled anywhere, never did anything, and blah, blah, blah. All of that comes into play. But even regardless, if somebody is uneducated, not smart, dumb as a box of rocks, never left their hometown, or whatever, it doesn't mean that we should call them names. But it still happens, so, oh well. Hopefully, just one day at a time, we can kind of curb our enthusiasm when it comes to name calling. And of course, this comes on the day that I saw that what was it, Missouri, or the with the tornado thing. What was it? There was that tornado official somewhere, and the person. Let me see if I can find that tornado firing. If I can find it. Tornado director fired. I don't know. It was kind of weird. But there was some person that ended up talking about. Oh yeah, here it is. Yeah, here's here's what I want to show you. This is so here is the SEMA director placed on leave after sirens failed during deadly tornado. And Sarah Russell, director of St. Louis Emergency Management System, has been placed on administrative leave because her and her team were offsite at a training when the storm hit. The siren activation equipment was back at their office, but for some reason it wasn't even contacted. They didn't contact somebody, and it didn't. It ends up 5 people died, and then I just kind of put that, yeah, this is probably one of the more inbred, backwoods, redneck, hiring bias that I've ever seen, and it's just like, yeah, I mean, if that's not good old boy hiring, I don't know what is, but yeah, so yeah, everybody calls names, but I mean, really, seriously, we've seen enough people who have been elected or hired for positions. We've seen it in the military. We've seen it in everyday life. People that were hired for a job that never should have had that job. You had one job, push a button, and you didn't do that. And even if you're gone, I mean, you need to take steps and be proactive. And obviously, that didn't happen. We've seen it in the military as well. I've seen lots of leaders who are total idiots. Have to respect the rank, but I don't have to respect the person because they're dumb as a box of rocks, when they make obviously the wrong decisions. So there's that. Let's see. Let's go back and get off of that. We'll talk about the weather. Do you think the weather will be humid middle of June? Oh, yes. Yes, the weather will be horrible in June. It's already getting hot. Like today, I think it's supposed to be in the 80s, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see, what is that? Pull up the weather here. Yeah, today is supposed to be, come on, it's supposed to be 81. And participation is not much. Forecast, temperature. But yeah, the humidity can get brutal here in Korea. Matter of fact, the other day we had it hit up, it was like 78, 79 degrees, but the humidity was like 88.4, and I was already starting to sweat. And you'll get that in, let's see, well, it's May, but you'll get that more in June, July, and August. Those are going to be rough months. And according to the Korean news, it ends up this summer is going to be worse than previous summers for heat and humidity. So June, July, August are rough times to be in Korea. So June's going to get it's going to get pretty humid. It's it's you're going to feel it. But probably July is the worst, and even back in last year, things didn't really cool down until our anniversary, like which is third week in September, and it was kind of still oppressive hot when normally in the past it ends up it'd start to get into the fall and it would cool down a little bit. So yeah, you're going to experience it's going to be a hot summer. Ricky, yeah, he says it's going to be hot summer. He's another guy who lives here in Korea as well, so he's experienced that, and yeah, it's going to get a little rough. Let's see. Henry asks, are there any places in Korea that are cooler in the summer months where Koreans flock to? Busan, yeah, mountains. If you go to Soraksan, obviously the higher elevations, you're going to have cooler temperatures, so they're that. Soraksan is in the northeast part of Korea, which is really beautiful, by the way. And the mountains up there, there's cable cars, definitely a lot cooler. So a lot of Koreans will go up into those mountain areas. Then if you go to Busan and stuff like that, beaches, coastal areas, of course that depends on the winds. But generally, you'll get humidity on beaches can get pretty rough. But then you also have the winds that come, from being on the coast. But in my experience, the times that I've been down to Busan during the summer months, yeah, it can still get pretty rough, especially in the deep, hot humidness. Let's see. Mark says ChatGPT is saying it will be hot, but humidity will start in July. I don't know. Maybe, but according to what we've seen on the news, it said this summer is going to be more hot and humid for a longer period of time than usual. So more rain, more moisture, more humidity, more heat as well. So those things are rough. Yeah, I wonder if we can find the 30-day weather Korea. Let's take a look at the Seoul 30-day weather outlook and see what we can come up with. So here it is, forecast. We were under the 30-day forecast right here. And so, seriously, hate those little pop-up things. Stop it. Okay, so 28 May, which is today. You can see the temps there, humidity 37, which isn't bad, but when you start getting up, we start seeing 46, 46, and then we start getting into June. So around this middle of June, you're going to see, humidity of 48, 72, 60, 90, 80, 93. Yeah, it's going to be miserable. And in some of these forecasts, just to let you know, as it changes. Even then, you'll have, despite ChatGPT and things like that, it can get pretty rough. And the thing that makes it even worse is, Henry just brought this up. Similar to Manhattan, I can imagine that Seoul trapped the heat like an oven. All that concrete and glass must be radiating with heat. Exactly. I was just going to talk about that. In the cities, especially Seoul or more built-up areas, you'll definitely have more of that radiated heat, the trapped heat into the concrete and all of that stuff. It can be rough. So it's not uncommon during the summers to see people with umbrellas and with the little personal fans and holding fans, or the fan that goes around your neck that blows, air and stuff like that. Those are becoming more and more of a thing. So, and yeah, I might actually get me one of those little fan things. Old-fashioned oatmeal. I love old-fashioned oatmeal. At least you won't be in Mach 4. Yes. And for those of you, Mach 4 is kind of like the chemical suit that you would wear in the military in case there was nuclear, biological, or chemical weapons being used. You would put on this charcoal embedded suit and then a, apparatus on your face, a mask that covered up everything, rubber gloves and booties, and it was just in the heat of summer in Korea or anywhere else. Try putting on Mach 4 in Panama. They actually tried that for a little bit. We had a lieutenant that was like hardcore, and when we were down in Panama, he wanted to do Mach 4 training, and yeah, it only took like 20 minutes because in Panama the heat was terrible. You could take a shower, dry off, and then take 4 steps away, and you're drenched in sweat. That's how hot and humid it was. It was the worst humidity ever, especially in the jungle. So we ended up getting a couple guys that had some heat injuries in 20 minutes, and so the colonel put a stop to that and said, no, absolutely zero mop training down in Panama. So yeah, being retired is good. Being retired is good. So yeah, we got some stuff going on. I guess we could change this and just put Korean stuff about Korea and such. Alrighty, there, yeah. So yeah, it's visiting Korea in June is definitely going to be interesting. Let's see. Henry comes up and he says, I know the wife is Korean, but are you into Korean food? What Korean diet could one do to gain muscle mass? Yep, my wife is Korean. There's that. And are you into Korean food? Yes, I'm into Korean food. I generally stick to beef and chicken. I don't do pork, and I don't do a lot of seafood. The reason I don't do pork is because of my stomach, and when I eat a lot of pork, it ends up that aggravates my gastric reflux and so on and so forth. So I stick with chicken and beef and fish and things like that. Seafood, that kind of gives me problems, but I generally just kind of went off of that as well. But gain muscle, yeah. Korean ribs, Korean chicken, the whole 9 yards, definitely do that. Matter of fact, we just had marinated beef ribs yesterday after we took a little trip, and after we did some shopping, we stopped and grubbed out, where they have the grill in front of you and you cook it, in the marinated beef. Oh, it was so good. The lettuce and all of the side dishes with kimchi and daikon and pickled this, pickled that, gochujang, different types of, different types of soups and Korean food. I'm all in for Korean food. So yeah, that's not a problem. But for muscle mass, it generally just comes down to you could, gain muscle mass in any country as long as you go for foods that are high in protein, like chicken, beef, and so on. Even fish, you could do that. You could do the pork thing as well. But if you really want the dense protein, chicken and beef and fish are going to be your go-to ingredients. But everything else on top of that, all the side dishes, the kimchi is real good for your stomach and intestinal health and things like that. Same thing with sauerkraut, German sauerkraut. I've got a lot of German ancestry in that part of the world, so we love that. My wife likes sauerkraut as well. So yeah, it's we probably, I don't know, we have a mix of American food and Korean food in our home. So yeah, it's there it is. I don't know. But yeah, it really comes down, if you want to gain muscle, is how much protein you eat, and then your exercise and your recovery. That's kind of a thing I do. Kind of help keep the PTSD level. That's why I go to the gym a lot. But yeah, it really comes down to a lot of diet and tracking your protein, your carbs, and fats and all that stuff. And I'm currently, I'm currently 260 pounds. So, and I maintain that weight, so that's eating a lot of food. But yeah, let's see. Is getting fat for a moment unavoidable when gaining muscle mass? Is gaining, if possible, if I want to stay lean? Is gaining even possible? Yes, it is. Absolutely. You can actually gain muscle and lose body fat at the same time. So, for those of you who don't know, we'll dip into the physical fitness part. To lose body fat, we're not going to talk about losing weight, but we're going to talk about losing body fat. You can lose body fat by being in a calorie deficit. So whatever the amount of calories that you need to survive, do all the involuntary actions, pump your blood, breathe, think. No, some people don't. But do all those things, be alive, just to maintain you living takes a certain amount of calories. And then you have your physical activity of the normal stuff that you do during the day. You're going to add a little bit more calories. And then that is going to be like your basal metabolic rate. You're going to need X amount of calories just to do the normal stuff. And then if you exercise, you're going to need a little bit more calories. So if you want to gain weight, you need to be in a calorie surplus. If you want to lose weight, you need to be in a calorie deficit. So look at a caloric calorie calculator, and you could put in your age, your weight, your height, your activity level, and all those things. And then it will give you a calorie amount for either losing weight, maintaining weight, or gaining weight. Now the question is, can you gain muscle and lose body fat? Is basically, I think, what you're getting at. Getting fat, because back in the day, bodybuilders used to bulk and they would just eat a shitload of food, and then they get really fat, and then they would cut and then try to hold on to the muscle. Well, actually, you can do a body recomp where you can, if let's say you're obese and you're overweight, you can have an increase in your protein so that you can build muscle, maintain or build muscle, but you can still be within a calorie deficit so that your body uses your stored fat as fuel, but with the increased protein, you can keep or build lean muscle mass. So that's actually a thing. It's proven by science, and a number of people have done it, and it's a thing. So you can actually gain muscle while losing body weight. Now, it's not going to be significant, and when we're talking about gaining muscle, I guess we'll dip into the most muscle that you will gain will be in your first year of working out, if that's your goal, is to gain muscle. And so generally, from what I've seen in studies and meta-analysis is that have done testing with control groups, is saying having 0.7 grams per pound of body weight, you can gain muscle. And above that. It used to be the rule of thumb was 1 gram per pound of body weight, or 1 gram per pound of body weight that you desired to have. So there was that, but it seems pretty excessive, especially with the studies that have come out that show that you can gain muscle by having just 0.7 grams per pound of protein per pound of body weight, and anything above that, there's not a significant difference when it comes to eating more, like a gram per pound, or a gram of protein per pound of body weight, or 2, like the professional bodybuilders. But then again, that's far outside the realm, because they're doing steroids and juice and all of that weird stuff. So but yeah, it is possible, and it just comes down to hyper focus on your nutrition. So balancing your calories, and then your macros of being your protein, carbs, and fats. And if you have high protein and a low carb diet, and then your body's going to say, hey, well, I need fuel to work out and recover and so on and so forth. So it'll maintain the muscle mass or even grow muscle mass because of the high protein and your exercise and recovery. But then it's going to take that stored fat and use that. So, but the thing is, that's going to take a while. And people that are overweight and obese, it took years to do that. And unfortunately, in today's, immediate gratification society, we want the same thing quick. but it's going to take you time. Case in point, I was kind of the opposite. I wanted to gain muscle, and I was 210 pounds, and I got up to 260 pounds, but it took me just over 3 years to do that. And I had lifted before in the past, but I'm at pretty much the max where I could get with that. And currently I'm 260. I've got, I'm kind of thinning out, so I'm doing exactly what we're talking about here, is that I'm keeping the protein high and then I'm cutting some fat, doing a little bit of a calorie deficit, but I like being big. But I'm slowly thinning down, so it is possible. So, but it just takes working out, resistance training 3 to 5 times a week. Cardio is very important. I'm a big proponent of cardio, to do 75 to 150 minutes of cardio a week. That's good for your heart health. Can reduce heart issues up to 50%. And it's in recovery. I try to get 7 to 10 hours sleep a night. On days that I work out hard, I'll come home and I'll nap for 2 or 3 hours and then still go and sleep at night. So that's the nutrition part. But what about training? What is enough if I don't have a lot of time or no gym membership? That's a good question. Let's see. If you don't have a lot of time, if you can do, I would say minimum would be 3 times a week. Resistance training. You could do body weight exercises, but I think if you're really looking to put on muscle, you're going to need some higher resistance, like dumbbells of some sort or kettlebells or things like that. So you could do a home workout exercise with dumbbells and a home gym, which is the stuff you can get now is amazing compared to 20, 30 years ago. So it is going to be really, really cool. You could end up doing that and get an effective workout. I know with me and my wife, when we decided to change and to get fit and get in shape, we ended up with a small gym in our basement back in Colorado. I had the adjustable dumbbells, which were really good. The Bowflex adjustable dumbbells, had those. And those were really good. Those the most bang for your buck. Got a bench, so I could do chest, incline, decline, flat bench, and then the rest of the stuff. I could do curls, I could do military press, I could do raises, I could work pretty much anything. I could do squats with those as well. So a good set of adjustable dumbbells would be really good. And thank you. Yes, try it out. Hey, send me an email if you want to discuss it more. I can hook you up with some ideas on a program or a routine and kind of give you something that's more targeted towards your situation. Let's see. Have you been to Myeongronji Sa Kalbi? It's AYCE Korean barbecue chain. Only $13. No, I haven't. I've been to Arirang. It's not a chain store. It's a local place nearby, but there's a couple other places that we've been that have been chain barbecue places that are good. And $13, that's pretty good. That is pretty good. What does it come out in won? Do they have one near here? Like Pyeongtaek area or something like that? That would be interesting. Because I'm all for the beef. So that comes out to about 20,000 won, somewhere around there. So that's a good price. And there's some all-you-can-eat places too. Now we have been to some Korean barbecue places that were supposed to be good and good deals, and the price was good, but it ends up the meat wasn't marinated, it wasn't seasoned or anything like that, so it was just kind of plain and blah. Thank God for the side dishes and the gochujang and garlic and things like that, and put sesame oil and salt and pepper in there and add some of that. We do that. But I'm always on the lookout for a good Kalbi place. So yeah, I'll definitely have to check that out on the neighbor map. Yeah. Matter of fact, I'll have to look back on this. I wonder if I can I copy that? I think I can. And neighbor. Neighbor! Neighbor, 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 neighbor. Neighbor. Mark says, Korean barbecue with family of 4 in the United States, you're spending over $120. Absolutely. Yes, you will. Yeah, I can't. I have to go back and find that chain. Copy text. Let's try that. Paste. And let's see if we can find it. So for those are, show you what we're doing. So we're here in Neighbor, and there that is. So it comes up with different places, and that's up in Seoul. And that's unfortunate, man, because Seoul has a lot of good places. So yeah, I'd have to travel up in Seoul because I'm down in this area here. And yeah, it's not even in Pyeongtaek. Pyeongtaek-si, Anseong-si, all of that area there. Dang, now you got me wondering. Maybe I need to take a trip to Seoul. There was a great, and it was a chicken place that was close to the train station. When we went up there, we did a little bit of sightseeing, and we had a family friend meet us up there. And the last meal we had was going to a chicken place. I forget the name. Chicken and beer, but it was the bomb. It was kind of like the best chicken we've had since we've been here. And again, it's a chain store, but they don't have any down in our neck of the woods. But yeah, it just makes me want to almost take the trip to Seoul just to eat a meal. Which isn't bad. I mean, we went down to Busan just to eat, Hanu beef and stuff like that. So, yeah. Huh. And they've got some good ratings on their restaurants. So let's see if they end up. So we're waiting and waiting and waiting. Oh yeah, look at that. As it populates with some pictures. Come on. Look at that. Yeah, that's how they cook the food. You cook it right at your own table. It is gochujang, galbi. Oh, that looks good. And it looks good. Oh, there you go. That's the bomb. That is how you eat it. So you get your lettuce wrap. You can put some of the side things in there, put some gochujang, some garlic, throw some rice in that, and wrap it all up into a ball and shove it down your pie hole. Yeah, that is the way to go. It is definitely good. So, yeah. Yeah, retiring in Korea is a good thing. Let's get back to Henry asked the questions. Have you found a friend group in Korea? Many other expats or retirees? I think once explained that you two are fine with staying with yourself. Is it difficult to find community? That's a good question. There's a couple of people that we hang out with, but we're pretty much loners. We're real selective on the people that we hang out with, just because we've been burned so many times. Obviously, if you touch the stove and it's hot, you're less likely to touch the stove again. some trust issues going on. But we have the wife's family. We get together every once in a while, so we do that. As far as other expats or retirees, there's a couple of people that I talk to and hang with from time to time. So yeah, but then that's just me. There's a lot of people. You have the VFW, which is here. We went there. We're not real big drinkers, and so that whole dynamic of, I'm not saying anything bad about the people. We just don't like drinking. It's just not our thing, and seeing people getting drunk and all that, it's a little rough. But for other people, that's absolutely fine. And if that's what you do, that's cool too. We do, go for it if that's what you enjoy doing. But you have motorcycle groups here. You have other people that go out. I think it's like Pyeongtaek Living. You have some language exchange groups that retirees and expats go to learn and practice Korean or go sightseeing. There's different groups that do hiking in Korea. With my back and feet, I can't do a lot of hiking. I got to minimize how far I walk in a day. If I get to 8,000 steps, yeah, my dogs are hurting. So, is it difficult to find community? The last part of that question, and I would say it's probably a little harder here in Korea, because if you're looking for expats and you're not around a military base, you're going to be limited. It seems, at least the way I see it, is that if you're closer to a U.S. military base, there's more retirees, because they kind of are like us, husband, wife, wife is Korean, so on and so forth. And so it ends up, it's easier to find people around military bases that are like you or like us than if you're not. And it's harder to find friends because, let's face it, in Korea, when Koreans retire, you're talking about 70s, being 70 years old or so on and so forth. And even then, a lot of seniors remain working. And then when they retire, it's a whole different attitude about retirement. So I don't know. It's just kind of interesting. I would say it's a little more difficult than in Korea than in other countries like Thailand, Philippines, where you have larger expat communities and retiree communities. You'll find more like-minded people, more people. You have more chances of meeting people than you do in Korea. There's not a lot of retirees and expats in Korea compared to those countries. Eddie says, Adele, sorry about that. Later in life, when you appreciate more medical care, would you consider moving back to the U.S. if it gets difficult? If it's difficult to find care outside of Seoul, where the cost of living may become too high. No, actually, I don't think so. In the United States, I don't think I would. We're not planning on ever going back. That is not our plan. It's not in our backup plan. It's not in the backup plan to the backup plan. The medical care that we can get here in Korea, and good medical care outside of Seoul. It kind of goes back to, it depends, because you can also get not good medical care in the United States. It all depends on where you go. We've lived in the United States for decades, and born and raised there the whole 9 yards, and I've seen marked differences between different hospitals. So it really depends on where you are. You can be in the United States and go to a hospital and get substandard care, and then versus driving 3 hours and getting to a better hospital to get excellent care. So the same thing is kind of here in Korea. With that said, we have access to the emergency room here at Camp Humphreys. That is an option, but if things get really serious, they will transfer you over to the Korean hospital, Good Morning Hospital in Pyeongtaek, which is like 20 minutes away. And then if you have real big serious items, you would go to the bigger hospitals up in Seoul, like Samsung Medical Center, St. Mary's, and I forget the name of the other ones. But you can get some excellent care. Probably the best care I've ever gotten has been at Samsung Medical. So, but that last part, says move back to the U.S. if it gets difficult to find good care outside of Seoul, where the cost of living may become too high. Cost of living is half of what we were paying in the United States. So I don't see the cost of living getting to a place of where it's going to get expensive for us, for a couple of reasons. One, we bought our apartment, we paid with cash, so we don't have that huge expense of having a financed property. We still have apartment fees. But even with all of that, all of our expenses, we're paying less than half of what we were in the United States. So that allows us to, save significantly. We can save a considerable amount of money every month and put that into savings, and so we have an emergency fund and so on and so forth. And our health insurance is another big thing. We've got TRICARE Overseas Select because I'm a retired military. And the hospitals that we go to take that insurance, and we have gotten really good care. So, yeah, I don't think I'll go back to the States. Just don't see that in the cards. And I don't see the cost of living becoming too high here in Korea, or the medical care being difficult to attain with the hospitals that we go to. So, yeah. Mark asked the question, since we're talking about doctors, is the doctor's strike over? Yes, the doctor strike is over. But it didn't end like we wanted it to. For those of you who don't know, being here in Korea, living overseas, you're going to find and face some obstacles. One of the strangest things that I've seen since living here, or since I've ever been in Korea, has been the doctor's strikes. And so the government came up and said, you know what? We want more doctors. We have an aging population which requires more medical care. Under our current medical system, doctors are being overworked. They're working 100, 120 hours a week. They're working 6 days a week. They're working 36-hour shifts, which compared to the United States, you work a 24-hour shift. And even then, Korean doctors were seeing anywhere from 100 to 120 patients a day. That's crazy. And according to the Korean doctors, the Korean Medical Association, doctors were seeing a patient and they were only spending about 3 or 4 minutes per patient. And so the system is so overloaded, and that has made the Korean medical get really efficient at treating a mass amount of people. But the problem is you get it to the breaking point of where it's getting detrimental, because you're overburdening the doctors. The KMA, the Korean Medical Association, said, yeah, our doctors are being overworked, blah, blah, blah. Their pay is low. Well, yeah, it is, but the majority of these doctors work for for-profit hospitals. But when the Korean government said, hey, we want to add 2,000 more doctors to people that can become doctors, the Korean Medical Association said, no, we don't want that, because it'll decrease the amount of prestige of doctors, and we can't have that. That's an actual quote from the KMA. They said, yeah, it'll decrease the prestige, and we can't have that. And it'll destroy our current medical system if we have 2,000 more doctors. For a aging population of over 50 million people, yeah, I don't see how it would destroy the medical system that they have. They're not lowering standards, the exact same standards. You're just adding more doctors, and there's like 100 teaching hospitals. So really, in the grand scheme of things, I did the math, and it ends up that you might get one extra doctor per department. That's not going to destroy the medical system, but that will bring in more manpower to help alleviate the overburden of work. Well, they said, no, we're never going to do it. And so the Korean Medical Association said, we're going on strike. So all of the resident doctors, I don't know how they talked the resident doctors into striking, but they did. And it was like anywhere from 9,000 to 12,000 doctors went on strike, stopped going to work, stopped going through residency, which threw the medical, up on its head, and that ended up being so detrimental to the Koreans and foreigners like me living here. There was people that were not getting surgeries, life-saving surgeries. There were people that were not getting chemo, not getting treatments. Emergency rooms were closed for 1 or 2 days out of the week because they didn't have enough doctors. Appointments, were being pushed back 6 to 8 months or more because of the medical strike, because without the resident doctors, or let me put it another way, with the resident doctors, they handled about 70 to 80% of the workload. Wow. So yeah, you get rid of those, and that is going to push back all of those appointments. So it was really, 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 really terrible. And so the Korean Medical Association has not increased the number of doctors for 27 years. Haven't done it. Even though the population went up and then the population's going down because we have an aging population, but when you have a super aged population, you have more medical needs and more requirements, more doctors, more treatment, and so on and so forth. So there's actually a big need for more doctors. But for the last 27 years, a KMA has not increased the number of doctors. Sure, if somebody retires or a doctor quits or whatever through natural attrition, they replace that doctor, but they haven't increased the number of doctors. And what happened is the government said, hey, we want to put more doctors out in rural areas under this plan. We'll give special incentives and so on and so forth. And the KMA says no, that it would destroy the medical community. Oh, and then their political reach even got into the medical schools, and the medical school students went on strike. So now we're being put into a position where, long story short, the government finally ceded and said, yeah, we're okay, forget it, we're not going to deal with this. Of course, they also had the presidential impeachment, and so that was kind of, they just kind of canned that. But now this is putting everything they're behind. Medical school students are behind because they haven't gone through school because they basically took over a year off. The residency doctors have to go back. They have to redo another year to make up for that lost time. They just can't, be gone for over a year and then just come back and pick up where they left off. They have to redo that entire residency year. So the amount of doctors that you have is still less, even if all those doctors come back. But here's the weird thing, a lot of those doctors didn't come back. So even though the strike is over, it's absolutely crazy. It's just weird. The reason that doctors, it's about limited facilities and subpar training because of too many students, it's obviously silly. It's about maintaining standards and salaries. It's weird because the KMA did the doctor strike as a political thing. And the KMA never says, and no one ever asked them. That was the other weird thing. The Korean media never asked, and their reporters and talking to the spokespeople and so on and so forth, and the president of the KMA, well, if doctors are being so overworked, what are your solutions? Instead of having more doctors, what solutions are you proposing? They never offered any solutions. It was just doom and gloom. Oh, we can't have any more doctors. It'll destroy the medical community and our system as it is. But the system has been built to fail, basically. It has been built to be run to make as much profit as possible. It's about standing, it's about prestige and salaries, which is weird because the majority of hospitals in Korea are for-profit hospitals. So why are you striking against getting more doctors if it's a for-profit hospital? Maybe it has something to do with the chaebols and they don't want more doctors because they would have to pay more and that would be an added expense, so they make less money. So let's get our buddies in the Korean Medical Association to go on strike, as they've done every single time for the last 27 years. And the Korean government has always bended their knee to that, and which is insane. Yeah, it is just, Mark, he says, wow, those doctors are responsible for a lot of deaths. Absolutely. There's a number of people that have died as a result of this strike because they went against their Hippocratic oath to, the patient first. Instead, it was political first and patients last. There's stories and cases of people who have died because they had heart attacks. There's one report where this person had a heart attack. They went to one hospital. The hospital says, no, we can't take you because we don't have any doctors because of the doctor strike. They went to a second hospital. They went to a third, a fourth, a fifth, a sixth, and a seventh hospital. Obviously, this is up in Seoul, and it ended up the person died because they couldn't get treated because of the doctor strike. People couldn't get life-saving surgeries. There was another one where, chemotherapy surgeries that had not life-saving, but definitely had an impact on quality of life. Eyesight surgery and things like that. People couldn't get surgery for glaucoma or, cataracts or things like that. Other surgeries that, we're going to push it off down the road 6 to 8 months later. Cancer diagnoses, you're just going to have to wait another 6 to 8 months to get your treatment. Well, that's detrimental. I mean, that's bad. So a lot of doctors. There was another case where a Vietnamese woman who was pregnant that flew, she started going into labor. She's in the ambulance. They went to a number of hospitals and they said, no, we can't take you. And because there was a problem with translating. I swear to God, everybody's got Google Translate on their phone or Kako Translate or whatever. How hard is it to translate? It's not. Well, the lady ended up having the baby in the ambulance, and then they finally found a hospital to accept her. So if there's any complications there, that could have been the end of the baby or the mother. But so many reports of, people dying and not getting surgeries. And so really the people that are paying the price are the hardworking people that live in Korea, Koreans. And it's just, it's so weird. So weird. Keep the supply doctors low and demand high. That's how they know they will make the most money, increase prestige. Yeah, that is absolutely, it is. And yeah, it is insane. It is the weirdest thing that I have ever seen. And talking with other people that live in like Philippines is really rough and left in hospitals unless you're in like the big cities. But even then, the doctor strike is such an odd thing. And to have a track record of not increasing your doctor over time, especially as a super aging population, is really detrimental to the population. So yeah, it is just weird, really weird. But I don't regret moving here. Wow, that will help with declining population. Don't treat pregnant mothers. and that's on the other side of the coin. Because Korea is becoming a super aging population, they're trying to come up with programs to spur people having kids, making babies, the old-fashioned way. It's always fun. Practicing is fun. But yeah, they're trying to come up with programs and things like that to, monetary things, of saying, hey, we'll give you X amount of money if you have children, because the government realizes that this is a huge problem. And the same thing with Japan. I think Japan is worse than Korea, but Korea's in the same boat. And if they don't do anything to significantly change the population, it's just going to be a thing they're going to have to face. And eventually there won't be a lot of people playing Japan or Korea. So yeah, it's still crazy. Does that concern me? I don't think so, because by the time I kick off this mortal coil, it won't really matter to me. You'll still have doctors, you'll still have stuff, albeit there'll be less. But the whole, the next generation, the following couple of generations, it's going to get even worse. So probably about 2 or 3 generations later, it's going to get really, really interesting. So yeah, nothing I can do to fix it. So I don't know. We'll just leave it at that. But somebody was asking me a while back about how is the Korean medical system geared towards profit, which Henry was talking about. Increase the demand and get a ton of people through there and make a lot of money. And I've talked about that. I've seen what is it? It just hit me because Mark popped up the thing about 5 locations in Pyeongtaek for that restaurant, and I lost my train of thought. which I appreciate. The medical association and how they build the system to get the most profit out of you as possible. And that's another reason of why the Korean medical system is so overworked, is because they designed it to be profitable. And like I said, most of the Korean hospitals are for profit. In the United States, I get a medication. Let's say I get this medication here and I get 3 or 4 other medications. I can go to my GP and the GP says, hey, here's a 30-day supply. I get my 30-day supply of medications for all of my medications. I'm good to go. And then with that refill, I get another 3 free refills, call-in refills, so that I don't have to see the doctor. When I'm done with this medication, it's done. I call, boom, I put in my refill, I go pick it up, and I'm good to go. And I'm good for another month. And I can do that 3 times. So the 30-day, so I can get 4 months of my prescription medications through my GP, and I'm good to go. So I had that one appointment in 4 months. In Korea, I have those 4 medications with different specialties. They don't have GPs here. So that requires me to get a refill every 30 days, which means I have to get an appointment with every doctor. So I got to see the gastro doctor for my stomach medicine. I've got to see another doctor for the chronic pain medicine. I got to see the psychiatrist because of my PTSD, and thank you, Uncle Sam, for the gift that keeps on giving. And then I got to get another medication from this other doctor. So that means 4 appointments to get my refills for each one of those every 30 days. Yeah, there's no refills. You have to see a doctor. And it doesn't matter if it's just like, Prilosec or some simple medication that you're going to be on the rest of your life. I'm obviously going to be on these medications for the rest of my life. I still have to go in every 30 days with that specific doctor to get the refill. I see him because they're so overworked. I see him for like 2-3 minutes. Yeah, how's it going? Oh, it's fine. I need a refill. Okay, boom, and he's done. And that's it. And I go get my refill. A super aging population needs more medication, so you can imagine, and I'm in typically pretty good health. Could you imagine Koreans or foreigners that need 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10 medications and all the appointments they would have to get their refill every 30 days? Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. So they have actually built the system so it's built to make as much money as possible, but it's built on inconveniencing the people. It's like you're herding cattle, and you're gonna make money off them, but you're not gonna make it convenient for them. So that's the one big thing that I don't like about the Korean medical system here, is that it's so antiquated when it comes to refills. And even then, there are some other problems with the Korean Medical Association or the Korean medical system, in that it's so compartmentalized in some aspects. Like, the wife had surgery on her shoulder. She asked about physical therapy, and the doc's like, well, just raise your hand and exercise like that. Why would you want to see a physical therapist? The surgery she had, if she was in the United States, she would be going to physical therapy. They would have a routine for her. She would be doing it for, 6, 8 months, and a routine that she would do afterwards. And it's just not a thing. The surgeon does the surgeon stuff. And if you want to, why would you want to see a physical therapist? You got the surgery. There's this disassociation. And that's another thing I don't like about Korean medical. So for my wife's surgery, we actually got with some information, and our daughter is a doctor, so she got some good information. I think it was like Johns Hopkins or something like that, and she was able to get the physical fitness or rehabilitation routine, and my wife ended up doing that on her own, following the map and the exercises and the whole 9 yards, and she has had wonderful. But there's other Koreans that have had that same surgery that obviously didn't go through physical therapy or given any type of exercise or rehabilitation routine, and there's complications to that. They can't raise their arm up past here because They just didn't do the rehab. And my wife, she can go all the way up and back, and she's almost at 100% now. So, yeah, absolutely crazy. Let's see. So they fund you through a doctor for any reason. It's tailored to fill their pockets. Yeah, but then they also give good service. They can get a huge amount of people through and get treatment. But they made their bed, so we have to lie in it. So while they become very efficient at doing things, it still puts, compared to like the United States and some other countries and their medical systems, it's lacking. And before the strike, Korea was ranked really high for providing medical. And we're not talking about medical tourism. That's still a huge thing. We're talking about general, departments in a hospital. We're not talking about medical tourism, medical. Those are separate and private entities in businesses. But yeah, it is frustrating. It just ends up that this is how they made the system, and the people are paying the price. And when people don't know any better, they're happy with what they get. But when you have people that go from Korea to overseas and they see the medical treatment and how they do it in the United States, they're like, even for Koreans, it's frustrating when they come back to Korea because they're like, this doesn't make any sense. But if that's all you know, then it makes sense. Let's see. Henry pops up. Japan and Korea's societies are aging, but also homogenous. Immigration could be a solution, but considering what is happening in other countries, I doubt Koreans are excited about that option. Yeah, it is. And that's absolutely true. But there have been some articles that I've been reading that because of the aging population and the Korean government is actually looking to increase the number of foreign workers coming into Korea to do labor jobs, farm and agricultural machine, warehouse jobs and things like that. Some of those, they're increasing the number of foreigners that can come into Korea. But there's still some resistance to that. There's a thing that happened where the government sponsored Filipino daycare or like nannies and stuff like that for children. And of course, they got paid less than their Korean counterparts. And then some people were up in arms about that. But there's a need for it. And it's like, well, it's just kind of a weird thing, what's going on. So I think Korea is going to have to face the fact that they're going to need foreigners to come into the country, one, to do more jobs. And I don't know how they're going to deal with the super aging population and the decline of birth rate in the country. They're offering money, but not a lot of people are doing it. Same thing in Japan, but even worse. So, it depends. And there's Koreans that are not excited about foreigners coming into Korea. But the majority of younger Koreans don't see that as a problem. The younger generation are like, what's the big deal? They're more flexible when it comes to that. At least the experience of my wife and her family and so on and so forth. Do you believe that immigration could change the things that are positive about Korea, like crime? Crime is a big thing here. I mean, crime is not a big thing here. But when you have immigration, and especially if you have illegal immigration, people coming, and let me define that. People coming to Korea on a tourist visa, overstaying their tourist visa, letting it totally lapse, and they intend to live in Korea and do jobs. There's a lot of people that are criminals that do that. And so there is a marked increase in crime in those areas. But will it change the things that are positive about Korea, like crime? Korea's been pretty good about crime, but they've also taken a recent stance of where they're cracking down on immigration fraud. And I posted about this a few years ago on how we would see more countries clamping down on immigration fraud, and because of things like increased crime and with the advent of technology and tracking people and so on and so forth, that it'd be easier to get rid of those criminals. And that's exactly what we're seeing. Low crime rate. Yeah. I don't think it's got to the point of where illegal immigration has affected the low crime rate. There is a possibility of that, but Korea's been pretty proactive as of lately to deal with that. He says, do you get haggled by a pension system in Korea to contribute even though you're retired already and don't have earned income? Pension system, I'm not eligible for the pension system in Korea because I'm not a Korean national, and and my wife's not a Korean national, and so we don't have to contribute to that. Under our visas that we have, F4 and F1, it's not a thing for us. So yeah, I don't get haggled or bothered by them at all. I do say that I did, after we spent 90 days here, we did get some correspondence from the Korean National Health Insurance, because if you stay longer than 90 days, you have to have some type of health insurance, whether it's the Korean National Health Insurance, which is about $100, $110 a month, or you can come up with your own health insurance that will work in lieu of that. There's an exception to that. We use our TRICARE Overseas Select. But I don't get bothered by the NPS for pension because it doesn't apply to us. But that's a good question, though. So, yeah, that's what we got going on. A lot of stuff going on here in Korea. Matter of fact, I think what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to have to cut this short. We've almost been at this for 2 hours, 1 hour and 46 minutes. Wow. Some good stuff. Good conversations. I like it. But I'm going to cut this short because today is gym day, shoulders and legs. So not going to skip leg day. So I got to get going. I got to eat some breakfast. We're going to go and do that, and have some fun. Henry says, how easy or difficult is it to go around your everyday life without speaking Korean? Do you feel any resistance to that like in Japan? No, and I think there is a Mark says, no, don't be a quitter. I quit every day. Without speaking Korean. It could be difficult, but then everybody has a cell phone, everybody has some type of translation app. The younger generations here in Korea know more English than the older generations, and even if there's problems, and they don't speak English or they're not confident in it, or vice versa, I'm not confident in speaking Korean more than I do. I just pull out the phone and do the translate thing, and boom, problem solved. It might take a little bit more time, but I'm retired, so I don't really care. But then again, you also need to take into consideration I live near a U.S. military base, so there's a larger U.S. presence here off post. There's more facilities and restaurants and services that provide those things to Americans, so they have more English-speaking people, so we don't really see a lot of that. But yeah, it's if you're way out and you're not close to a U.S. military post, yeah, it would be harder, but it would definitely be better to know some Korean, like if you could ask for the bathroom, hwajeongshil odi soyo, where's the bathroom? You could order from, 맥주 한 잔 주세요, and, can I have a beer, please? And simple conversations of 안녕하세요, Steve Wilson입니다, hello, my name is Steve Wilson, 어떻게 지내십니까? How are you? Simple conversation things. It makes things go a lot further. And obviously, I probably should know more Korean. I should learn more Korean than I know. I can pick up conversations, but my vocabulary is small. I can read Korean, but my vocabulary is small. And then when Korean starts speaking faster, then it's like I'm a half step behind, 2 steps behind, 3 steps behind, and then I just listen and pick out, word here or there, and I can kind of get an idea of what's being said. But if they just talk normal speed, or if they get excited, then it's like, wow, it's hard for me. And then I just kind of like, okay, whatever. But the Korean family's good. The younger generations, are good about speaking English and trying to speak English. I try to speak more Korean and things like that. I can count Hana Dual Set Net, Taset Yoset Ego Ahop Yodel. I could do things like that. I'm sorry, Mian Amnida. Basic things to get me through daily life if I've got, which is about the level that I'm at. But if I have to get into a detailed conversation, say medical, the hospitals we go to have an international office and they provide translators from Korean to English that are nurses. And so they do an excellent job. So anything that's really detailed or involved, something like that, or banking, I'd have to resort to the phone and the translation because I'm definitely not that level at all. So I can read signs and things like that, street signs, some restaurant signs, and business signs. I can pick out words and things like that. I can read all the Korean characters, but again, my vocabulary on what some of those words are is small. And again, I'm just deficient in learning. I'm lazy. Henry says, "Wow, you do speak Korean." 한국말 조금 알아요. So, a little impressive. I wouldn't say impressive. Henry ends up says, "Thanks for the live stream. See you next time. Do you have a regular schedule, or should we rely on YouTube bell notification?" Probably YouTube bell notification. Like and subscribe. If I do stream, it's usually in the mornings, like around the time that I've done this one. I don't have a set schedule, but I do like hobby videos and stuff like that. Those will kind of vary from in times, but kind of stuff like this, it'll usually be in the morning. So there's that. But to close it, I really appreciate the like and subscribe, and we'll kind of close this out. If you need to contact me, there is the email address. You can 100% contact me, and I will answer you at officialtheverylife@gmail.com. There's that. Do hobby videos, 3D printing, living in Korea, expat stuff. I've got some playlists or whatever. It's a mishmash of stuff, and this just kind of keeps me busy here in Korea. If you want to do me a solid, you can buy me a coffee. That's what the scrolling ticker is. There's a bunch of people who have bought me coffee, and the people I appreciate or get useful information, I buy them coffees as well. But if you don't, that's totally cool. Just like and subscribe. So anyway, that's what we got going on today. Real good discussions. I appreciate everybody that showed up and asking questions and talking and having a good time. I appreciate that. And this is cool. Thanks. You're welcome. Glad you could join. So we got that going on. So with that, we'll let you go, and we'll do some more streaming stuff. And if you have any other questions, comments, concerns, again, email is 100%. Comments on videos, kind of hard to respond because I've got like 200 and how many? I got a bunch. 234,349 views. That's where I got that little sign back there or whatever. And it's hard to respond because I've got so many views, and trying to answer everybody, I wouldn't have enough time in the day. But if you absolutely need to contact me, there's the email. Okay, done with coffee. Need food, starving, need to work out. So with that, thank you very much, and we'll see you on the next video. Peace. Yeah, good stuff.